You'll have to accept. All right. Well, for those of you joining in on the recording today, welcome to the Creator Network. Today is our DMO discussion with Ed Stoddard of the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. He's just talking to Alyssa and I here about his Bellefonte background, and I'm also based here in Bellefonte. So I'm happy to have Ed as my friend, neighbor, and colleague on today. And I'll let him introduce himself.
I am Edward Stoddard. I am the communications director for the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. I feel like I am very blessed to be able to do what I do where I do it. I have so many stories of Happy Valley to share, whether it's just for sports and you're a sports fan, or you're into history or agritourism, or attractions and family travel, solo travel. I mean, so many things to experience and share about Happy Valley. I am here very much here because of the outdoors, right in the middle of Pennsylvania. When I came to work here back in the 90s, I quickly discovered the trail network and the opportunities for fishing and photography and bird watching, all there is to do outdoors here. So that's why I stayed here and why I'm really glad to tell the story here.
Awesome. So, kick us off, if you will, by talking a little bit about the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau and its role as our, community DMO, and then also what some of the marketing objectives specifically for this year are.
So we are the tourism promotion agency, or depending what acronym you want, we're a TPA, we're a DMO, um, destination marketing organization, or destination management organization. Some folks are using that acronym nowadays. Our goal is to really invite people to come here to Happy Valley and learn all there is to do and see, um, to experience different things, to spend some money, and to leave here with great memories and go home and tell their friends and plan for that next trip. So our market gets about 5 million visitors per year right now. And that's not too surprising whenever you add up. We have the Penn State football schedule, of course, and Beaver Stadium is the fourth largest stadium in the world, and it holds about 107,000 people on a football Saturday. Whenever we know there's 107,000 inside and could be 125,000 outside tailgating, it lends to some big crowds in the area. So we want to that 5 million people a year that come here, and those tens of thousands of people that come to Penn State sporting events every year. We want them to know all there is to do and see. I really like to encourage people to explore our valleys in Happy Valley because we're so much more. I mean, Penn State is an important part of the market. Don't get me wrong. It's a vibrant economic engine here that leads to a lot of excitement, brings in a lot of culture to the area. But there's so many things, like in the my picture in the background here is Bellefonte, and there's a lot of neat stories around Bellefonte that relate to the entire county and the history of the United States. So um, I like to share all that with everyone. Did I answer
No,
your
for
question,
sure.
Ellen?
Yeah. What do you think is the hardest thing about telling telling the story of Happy Valley without um, talking about Penn State as part of that? I think, people always lump the two things together. So how do you, in your position, separate the two?
I really start to look at the different valleys and the different stories there are in our valleys here. Like the Moshannon Valley has Phillipsburg. They brand themselves as the wilderness city, and rightfully so because there's a lot of outdoor recreation in that area. But Phillipsburg in the Moshannon Valley has an interesting story about the natural resources in the area and how the timber produced there supported the iron furnaces that were in this area, creating the highest quality iron in the nation back in the day. So, I look for those unique things that there are in around all of the valleys. And, I weave that into the Penn State story too. In Penns Valley, it was a largely, and still is, a very largely agricultural area. There's a lot of agritourism opportunities there in Penns Valley. And Penn State started as the farmers high school. It's a land grant college, and tying it back to the agritourism in the area and the agriculture that still happens here, um, is one way that I weave the story together, so to speak.
Okay. So one of our main goals for these DMO discussions that we have here on the Creator Network is to like demystify, if you will, the process for working with the DMO, for working with a tourism organization of many kinds. So, one of the biggest parts of your roles is hosting creators. And I think that's something that's interesting that you and I have talked about personally, and I am throwing this at you as kind of a surprise here, is kind of that like historical shift from hosting journalists to this world of content creation. So with your industry experience, could you talk a little bit about that shift and what that has meant for destination marketing as a whole, but for the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau too?
So, working with content creators and having folks come in and gain insight into an area, I mean, that's the new marketing. The days of folks, listening to a radio ad and reacting, um, that just doesn't necessarily resonate as much as having a content creator come experience things, write about that from their own perspective, and giving that kind of personal recommendation that's inherent in the writing. People always want to know what other people think, and content creation, working with folks, this is an important piece of our marketing for Happy Valley. I like showing it off. I like being a tour guide. It's fun. And then a person would come, and like Alyssa would come and write about the area, um, maybe experiencing, I don't know, just an example. Maybe you've done goat yoga before, but we have goat yoga here. We just had a goat dairy open up. We joked that it's the year of the goat. And how else, you know, how else can we have someone come write about their experience, and then put that out in e-newsletters or social media, on their website, linking up to our website with that content, linking up with our social media with that content. It's just an important part of the marketing component nowadays. I'm in a unique position that I worked 18 years in a newspaper. I worked to support writers for a long time, and many of my colleagues don't quite get that. Um, the work that goes into the writing, the support that goes into the hard work that happens with a content creator, and um, they don't get the marketing aspect of it necessarily, and they aren't quite sure how to work with the writer. So it's really important to recognize everyone's strengths and kind of why you're there. And I'm here to show it off. Um, and then the content creator is going to, hopefully create some great content around the area. And we're going to share an authentic travel story together to an audience the content creator has.
Yeah, you bring up a good point though that I think that's something that we talk a lot about behind the scenes here on the network is just like what what the conversation and what the process looks like internally when creators are being considered. And the one thing I find myself often reminding members of our network of is that one, um, that we're the person you're communicating with is part of a bigger team. And ultimately, not always the final decision is left with that person. Um, and two, that everything takes longer than you would expect as a result of that. Um, so can you talk a little bit about, when you're going to your team and you're talking about the work that you're doing, not necessarily how do you prove it, because I know that you're making those decisions ultimately, but how do you talk about the value, and how do you convince those team members that may not feel as strongly as you do about the value of it? What's your pitch to them?
Watch the engagement, watch the authentic audience engagement too. So if someone's coming to write about family, looking to see on their Instagram how many actual families are commenting and what the conversation is about on the content creators platform. Um, so I talk a lot about engagement, that it's better to talk to one person and to recommend going to Gigi Southern Cafe, or Southern, sorry, Gigi Southern Cuisine. And if that person actually goes there, it's better to talk to one person than it is to talk to 100 people, because it's harder to get 100 people to go and listen to you in the first place. And you want to try and influence and have that authentic experience and conversation with people. So the max number, that is less important to me than the engagement. And that's what I talk about a lot with our team, that yeah, you can talk to the masses, but mass media and mass marketing, it's not really the way things are done nowadays. It's more that one-to-one conversation with a via social media, or via blog, you know, those people that choose to get that information.
Okay. So I think that something that is not necessarily unique to you, but you leverage more than a lot of the professionals I know in the industry, is the multiple different ways by which you meet and ultimately work with creators. So can you talk a little bit about some of the events that you go to, your process for vetting, like email pitches and things like that, or like how are you finding people initially?
So a lot of different ways. I mean, I have a relationship with my colleagues from the newspaper industry, with my LinkedIn, um, with my DMO colleagues. We work together to share information about folks. And a couple of the different organizations I'm a part of would be the Mid-Atlantic Tourism Public Relations Alliance, and I actually sit on the media committee for the acronym is MATPRA, and that's a gathering of a number of states here in the Mid-Atlantic that have communications colleagues, communications folks like me, all trying to tell the story. We have things in common, like, for example, here in the Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, we've got outdoor recreation is very important in this area, and train history would be another common thread that we have through the area. Agritourism. So, looking for those common threads with my DMO neighbors is something we look for, and something we talk about at MAPRA. How can we work together to make the Mid-Atlantic more of a travel destination, and tell the authentic stories of the Mid-Atlantic? Another organization that I'm close with is the Southern Travelers Explore. I wasn't able to attend the meeting this year in North Carolina, but I've been with that group and really made a lot of friends in that group, and a lot of good professional relationships with folks in North Carolina and in Atlanta, Georgia. I just had Garrett and Aaron Burke here from Huntsville, Alabama, a few days ago. So that was a result of the Southern Travelers Explore. Um, so it really starts with the DMO, and it can, for example, Alyssa started with an email, and we've discussed, trips, but the email is few and far between. I think I've connected with more folks by uh, with MAPRA and with the Southern Travelers Explore, um, going and having some shared experiences and just talking about what, for example, MAPRA, I volunteered on a farm. And at the same time I was volunteering on that farm, I was able to talk about the experiences that are in Happy Valley that are similar to what I was doing there. I think that was in Roanoke, Virginia, at one of the MAPRA conferences. Um, so it's a lot of different ways. It can be by LinkedIn, it can be by email, it can be by attending conferences and connecting with folks, or it can be with colleagues, saying, "Hey, I met this person and I'm thinking about hosting this person." We share information. We talk about, what the the pros and cons, so to speak, of how the person might line up with things that we're strategically trying to communicate. And that's how we do it in a nutshell. You asked me to talk about my vetting process. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, so if someone reaches out to me, I mean, I'm going to look at their Instagram, their social media, their Facebook. I'm going to look to see what the conversations are on their platforms. I'm going to look at their writing, see what their style is, see if they've got great photos, and if I think that the person lines up with us strategically at the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau to help convey a message that we're trying to convey. In Alyssa's case, she's going to fly in. We're going to do a whirlwind weekend trip, and with Happy Valley being right in the middle of Pennsylvania, we're equidistant from all borders of Pennsylvania. And so we're a great drive destination. Honestly, we're easy to get to, and we'd like to strategically communicate flying in our market. And I've flown in many times in and out of State College Airport and the regional airports around us here. Um, it's a great fly destination market, but it's not something that our bureau has historically promoted a lot. So that's an opportunity with Alyssa here was to help promote our drive, or I'm sorry, said that wrong. An opportunity with Alyssa was to promote our fly market. So I think it's kind of cool and not something we've honestly done before, Alyssa.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. Um, okay, I think that about covers my questions. I guess the only thing that we sometimes talk about is the budgeting process. So, when you are looking at your annual budget, how are you determining how much you're spending with creators, and what does that ultimately look like when you're betting pitches?
Yeah, I kind of look at the menu of what they offer in deliverables, and I line it up. I have an annual goal of how many creators that I think I can handle and work with and bring in a year. And it's all got to add up at the end of the day for a return on investment. So I look for the great writing, the great photography, and the great angles, to make sure that I'm bringing in the return on investment to my bureau, that it's not going to exceed my budget.
Perfect. Alyssa, do you have any questions you want to float that might be relevant to you specifically, or maybe to some of your friends?
Besides, where's my itinerary?
I know we'll get there. I guess I'm curious, how do you define like a successful partnership?
Um, I'll tell you one example was I hosted a content creator and the within days after hosting that content creator, our organically, our Instagram went up by 200 people. So that was a really great ROI on that, uh, and it's continued to grow from there. Um, so, looking for that kind of, you can never pick something and say, hey, this is going to be viral. But you always want to show off your experiences and gain something incrementally. Like, oh, we told that story in a little different way that time, or that was a really neat comment and good perspective, or we captured a photo that was kind of cool. Um, it all adds up. I tell our administration this a lot that I'm in this for the long game. That you don't, it's not something you can rush, and you've got to do everything fundamentally and incrementally, and you're going to get there. So we don't necessarily look for that big bang, like that 200 growth in the Instagram was really cool when it happened. But just stuff like that, if we show something a little different, or if we catch that great picture, every little thing adds up to a big win.
This could be a difficult question to answer, but um, is there any experience that you've had that um, maybe was difficult to deal with, or that you would caution creators about in their process?
Oh, I've got stories. Yeah. So one that leaps to mind was um, let let DMOs know, like have a frank conversation. If you will not jump out of a plane, we want to know that ahead of time. If you don't like spicy food, we want to know that ahead of time. So telling people what you like and also communicating clearly what you don't like is very, very important. I was on a cave tour, and caves are really important to us here in central Pennsylvania. We have great Pennsylvania limestone, and limestone is makes it more prone for there to be caves and show caves. There are 7 caves in Pennsylvania that you can tour right now. So, and I'm very lucky that I've got 3 of those caves right around me here with Penn's Cave, Woodward Cave, and Lincoln Caverns. So I was on a media trip, and we were on a cave tour, and the content creator waited until we were in one of the farthest, deepest parts of the cave, and the person froze, and what's wrong? And well, I'm claustrophobic, and it just hit me. And why didn't you? I never ever had. It was a rough moment, honestly, and I learned some of my negotiation skills at that point, because there was person was having a panic attack in in a cave, and it would have been great to have known up front if the person didn't want to go on a cave. They were trying to fulfill what their editor had assigned them to do, um, but I didn't have any heads up. So it's good to tell people what you're. It's as equally as important to tell your likes and what you don't like. There was one creator that I worked with that was really good at that, and they just gave me basically a 2-page, front and back. One side was don't throw me out of an airplane. The other side was I really like breweries. It's as simple as that. Just give us a list of what you'll do, and things that are off the table for you. And what your audience, of course, what your audience is interested in, what your passions are. If you like photographing flowers, we have Rooted Farmstead. It's a great agritourism destination here. I can easily line you up with things that your audience wants to know about and the things that resonate with you personally in my market, because I always feel like it's a good idea um, to tell, your if you really like ice cream, we can show you lots of great ice cream places here in Happy Valley as a agritourism destination market as we are.
Very true. I can attest to that. Um, I just to echo that sentiment, and I think Creator Network members that have been here for a while know that I am always pretty transparent about how my business is part of the Creator Network here. So, Hello Social Co is a social media partner with the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau, and as a result of that, Ed and I are often talking a lot about upcoming partnerships and different opportunities there. And one of the conversations I remember um, having with an opportunity a few years ago was there was a, a couple that was going to be coming, and for their partnership, there was a concert happening at a local theater that Ed was really interested in them attending. And I floated the idea by them as a slight change to the itinerary, and they were like, honestly, like we would not love it. And I was just so happy to hear that because that would have been a really long commitment for them that would have probably put a little bit of a damper on their trip as something that they really didn't want to do. And that would have been a few hours that they could have spent doing something else. So, just to echo that sentiment, it's really important to have that conversation and don't be afraid to say, I'd prefer to do something else.
Yeah, you're not going to offend me. I mean, I'd rather know that you were claustrophobic, because I'd rather know that you were claustrophobic before we get into the cave, right? It's just we're every DMO, every of my communications colleagues are trying to give the best trip possible. If you have a great experience, then you're gonna it's gonna come through in your photography, in your writing, in your video.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Alyssa, any final thoughts?
Um, I don't know. That was really helpful. I feel like as I'm constantly sending pitches and newly attending conferences. I guess I want to know what information is most helpful for you in a pitch. Um, like if you had to name like three things that you would find like most helpful in a pitch from a
Um,
creator.
the things that trigger you, the um, if you're an ice cream aficionado, for example, or that you really like hiking, that one's going to resonate a lot with me and with this area, of course, because I could talk about the outdoors for hours. Ellen's been subjected to this sometimes. Um, but yeah, so knowing, like, here are the three things that my audiences trigger on. Uh, I keep joking about ice cream here, but we know here that whenever we post an ice cream photo of something or talk about ice cream on social media, the engagement is usually pretty good. Um, so because of our dairy background and agritourism background, it resonates with our audience. So if you have things like that resonate, tell me those three things that you do the best. It's gonna catch my attention.
Cool. Can I ask the flip side of that? Like, what kind of communication do you like to hear from your partners after a trip is done, after the deliverables are in? Is there anything you'd like to see data wise or just in
Yeah,
general?
definitely the engagement. And if it was great, tell me that. If it wasn't great, tell me that too. Let's figure out how to do it differently for the next trip, maybe. Um, so yeah, on the data, on the return on investment side of things, I like to know engagement. What was your what was a comment that maybe caught your eye that you thought was pretty cool to share back with the DMO that just hosted you? Um, were there things that you liked about the trip? What could we do better? I often ask this question at the end of a trip, what could we have done a little differently that maybe had made it smoother for you? Um, so those are some of the things.
Oh, wow. I think that about does it. So Ed, thank you so much for being here. Alyssa, thank you so much for being here as well. For those of you that join us on the recording, would love to have more conversation in the network about this. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to post in there.